Thayer carried a quiet belief that the world could be arranged, not controlled, control invited noise, but arranged the way cutlery found its place in the drawer, or a picture frame settled level after a patient thumb against the edge. Order to his mind did not shout. Order breathed. Laura's boss, therefore, presented an interesting puzzle. New to the company, ambitious, and fond of comments that arrived 1 inch away from inappropriate, he belonged to that breed of man who dressed praise in ownership. Asset, he'd called Laura in one meeting. A real catch, he'd said in another. The words had passed for compliments because the room had decided not to hear them closely. Rooms often did this for men like that. Laura knew it. The set of her shoulders knew it. The careful polish of her tone knew it. He's coming for dinner on Friday, she said, sliding a calendar invite across the kitchen table like a treaty she hoped the other side would sign. It's a chance for him to see I have ballast. He respects ballast. Ballast, Thayer said, tasting the word. No mention of grenades. We're not mentioning grenades. The knives on the counter glinted, catching noonlight. 2 sets lay in quiet debate. Bone-handled, carbon steel. Fuller bellies on the carbon, a whisper of curve where the bone met brass. Aesthetic questions soothed Thayer in the way other men found comfort in sports scores. The bone-handled set won by a margin too slight for anyone else to notice. Laura watched him polish them. Promise me, no precision monologues. No sniping at 800 yards at the salad course. Charm. That's it. I will be the picture of it. Your pictures usually come with captions. A yawn wheezed from the doorway. Boone rose from his patch of towel and padded into the kitchen with the slow, judicial tread of an old magistrate. Fur dark as night, eyes damp and forgiving. He approached Thayer, leaned his large head against a knee, and looked up like a man deciding whether to stand for the verdict. We're hosting, Thayer told him. You will be cordial to our guest. Boone blinked once, then again, slower, as if the eyelids required a vote to continue. He thumped his tail once against the cabinet, not agreement so much as acknowledgement that events were now in motion and gravity would do as it pleased. Friday arrived on a breath that pretended to be spring. Laura arranged flowers with the brisk confidence of a person who had neither patience for decorum nor willingness to abandon it. A narrow vase, peonies and eucalyptus, stems trimmed by a hand that had memorized the angle of scissors against green. The house made its quiet preparations. Linen smoothed itself under her palms. Glassware cleared its throat. Thayer applied order to the rest. Roast resting under foil, platters warmed, wine breathing. He ironed napkins until the corners obeyed. The doorbell rang at 5:55. 5 minutes early, just eager enough to hint at control. Laura opened the door with a smile that meant practice. A blazer and turtleneck stood on the threshold, black on black in the way men sometimes reach for dignity by removing color. The man inside the clothes beamed a little too hard. Laura, look at you. Wow. Great place. He lifted a bottle by the neck with 2 fingers, the way a man displays a fish. I brought red. Something good. The guy at the shop said it was expressive. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Come in. Ron, he said, already inside. Thayer stepped from the kitchen and offered his hand, a polite extension that met pressure with exact reciprocity. The boss met it with stuck-on enthusiasm. You must be Thayer. I've heard about you. All good things, I hope. Oh, sure. Laura's very, what's the word? Anchored. Ballast, Laura said. Right, he laughed. Ballast. Boone arrived with the gravity of a planet. He stopped beside Thayer and sat, the way a good dog sits when he understands that sitting communicates more than barking would. The tail made a slow half-swish on the floor. His gaze found Grant and stayed there. Not a challenge, not a welcome. Something in between that asked a question most men did not want to answer. Great dog, Grant said after a heartbeat too long. Boone reads rooms, Thayer said. He has the soul of a notary. Well, he better not notarize my ankles. Nobody's notarizing anything, Laura cut in bright. Let's move to the living room. They moved to the living room. The room made an effort to look like it hadn't been made to look like anything. Books without curation, blankets folded as if by chance, a lamp with a small dent that had never been fixed. Thayer poured whiskey with the same hand that tied perfect knots. 2 fingers, then 1. Ice deferred for another day. Do you shoot? He asked, casual as weather. Photos? Grant shaped the word with caution. Targets. It's a pastime. Ah, Grant said, finding a couch cushion that seemed determined to reject him. I play squash. Similar principles, Thayer said. Angles. Timing. If you enjoy trajectory, a man can be happy anywhere. The chuckle was the kind that wanted to be camaraderie and arrived as a cough. Grant tried on comfort like a blazer one size too small and pretended it fit. The compliment parade began. Laura's been a star, he said, total star, strong deliverables, impressive client presence, really photogenic on client decks too, which, well, optics matter, right? Results matter, Laura said, the smile hardening by 1 degree. Sure, but when results come in a beautiful package, he gestured with his glass and spilled nothing. The package helps sell the ribbon. Boone's ear twitched. Kitchen needs me, Laura said, back in a minute. Grant lounged further into the couch once she left, as if the room had gained a permission slip. You're a lucky guy, he told Thayer, voice softening the way men soften their voices when they thought intimacy improved the flavor of a sentence. She's the full package. Smart, polished, gorgeous. The last word arrived with an extra coat of varnish. Luck favors preparation, Thayer said. He took a drink and let silence colonize the space between them. Grant shifted, as if silence were a jacket he could not quite shrug into. Look, I'm harmless, he said too quickly. Just appreciative. The kitchen door swung open. Laura's return brought with it the smell of rosemary and butter, a civilizing scent that suggested art had been performed in the oven. Grant sprang up with exaggerated gallantry to pull out a chair for her at the table. The gesture overshot intention and landed too close. A hip grazed a hip. Contact passed across the air like static. Laura pretended not to notice because professionalism often asked women to donate that kind of pretending. Thayer noticed. Dinner began as dinners do when people agree to pretend a second time. The salad arrived, greens bright against white. Slices of radish lay like coins on a bed of green. Vinaigrette caught light and glowed. Parmesan fell in a soft drift. Grant complimented the dressing, then complimented Laura's hands for tossing it. He did not hear himself because men like him rarely listen for intent inside their own voices. The roast surrendered under Thayer's knife in obedient slices. Conversation took its familiar suburban shape. Weather, a new account, a joke about parking. Laura steered, subtle as a rudder. Grant leaned where a guest should have sat. Grace came before the main course because Thayer insisted on old shapes. Hands found one another around the table in a circuit Laura had long ago learned to trust for its power to set tone. Thayer's eyes closed without theater. Thank you for this meal, he said into the quiet, for the work that bought it and the hands that made it. Keep us honest. Keep us from temptation, especially the kind that dresses itself as admiration with bad timing. Amen. The spoon in Grant's hand found the plate with a small clatter. He laughed to prove he had taken a joke. Ha! Good line. Wasn't a line, Laura said, without looking up from the roast. She served him a generous portion. She chose the less tender edge. Wine worked its way into Grant's blood. He warmed the way men warmed when they believed a room was learning to adore them. Compliments sharpened toward flattery and then began to fray. Dedication became long hours became travel. Travel became off-site opportunities with a grin too wide for the sentence. Laura laughed at nothing the way experienced women laughed when saying nothing sounded unsafe. Boone repositioned under the table, closer to Laura's chair. His head found her calf and rested there with the weight of a vow. He stared at Grant's knees and did not blink until Grant noticed the staring and laughed again, uncertain now. The room changed when someone opened a window you didn't see. Air thinned. The edges of objects took on more accurate names. Grant made a show of refilling Laura's glass with a flourish that touched the rim of the glass and then her wrist. The contact lasted half a second too long. Time stretched to hold it. Something informal died. Laura's smile stayed on her face because smiles can be strapped down if you cinch them tight enough. The muscles at her jaw flickered, a horse resisting a bit. Thayer placed his wine glass on the table with care. The stem rang faintly against wood and told the room to hold its breath. Dessert? He asked, and the question contained a message for Laura alone. Not yet. Not yet. Keep the table intact. Coffee would be great, Grant said, voice pitched lower. I could use the energy. Big day tomorrow. The words energy and tomorrow did work they had not been hired to do. Laura stood. Help me in the kitchen, she said to nobody and to Thayer alone. They stepped into the sanctuary of the swinging door. Steam fogged the edge of the stovetop. The coffee smell took the room by the lapels and shook it gently awake. Laura set cups on a tray with careful measure. He's flirting in footnotes, she said low. I can drag this across the finish line if you don't amputate the table. Your call. He's my boss. I need the rest of this year. Keep it civil. I will keep it precise. Her look asked a second time and received the same answer. The cups chimed as porcelain met porcelain. She lifted the tray. He slid a hand under it to take the weight. 5 minutes, she said. Then we end the night. Back in the dining room, Grant had found a way to sprawl inside a chair. He greeted the coffee like a man grateful for a sermon he did not believe. The first sip shook something sober loose. Not enough. His hand reached for a napkin. The hand paused. The pause drifted toward Laura's hand, where it rested beside the plate. Contact again, this time deliberate, the pad of a thumb against the back of a hand. Boone's growl rose from the floor like a low tide that decided to flood. Soft, sustained soul of an oath. Grant snatched his hand back as if heat had found it. Thayer set the tray down with deliberate quiet. Does the den interest you? He asked, not to Laura. Targets just came in. New silhouettes. Grant's throat worked. I, have an early morning. Of course. A quick look then. 2 minutes. Laura lifted her cup and didn't drink. 2 minutes, she said, and something cold replaced something warm in the arrangement of her face. The den waited with the patience of rooms that know what they are for. Warm lamps, shade turned low, cases along one wall, glass, clean, contents arranged along a logic that would have comforted a mathematician. Certificates hung above the mantel in a tidy grid, brass plaques below each name that would have told a story if words had been welcome here. Field survival, threat assessment, long-range marksmanship, how to stop a body from ending, how to end a body's attempt to continue. Nothing boasted, everything witnessed. The grenades live quiet lives behind glass. Inert now, though nothing about their shape allows the mind to adopt the word. 3 in a line, pins aligned like a row of little silver prayers that had not been answered. This is a hobby? Grant asked, trying for levity and landing on reverence. Precision, Thayer said, old implements. History fits in the hand. Grant's eyes found something else, a stack of paper silhouettes rolled at the corner of the desk. The top one had been used and then used again. The cardboard core showed where repetition had bored a hole through the most important place a man used to put his thoughts. Grant stared because the eye goes where the story is loudest. Paper, Thayer said, almost gentle. It stops there. A nod that pretended to understanding. The room grew warmer. Grant's collar seemed to shrink. He tugged at it as if fresh air could be coaxed from cotton. Conference suites, Thayer said, considering the word like a sommelier. So many cameras, so few alibis. Hazardous places. The sentence traveled a circuit and returned. Grant looked at Thayer the way men looked at horizons when they suddenly remembered how far a horizon can be. I would never. We're colleagues, Thayer said. She brings home clients. She does not bring home trouble. Grant nodded. Too quickly. The head resembled something found on a dashboard. I'm going to head out. Big day tomorrow. Early meeting with folks. Of course, Thayer said. Coffee for the road? No thanks. I'm good. Back in the hall, Grant fumbled for his coat and missed the sleeve. Boone planted himself between man and door with the serene authority of a lighthouse. No bark, just light. Grant navigated around him with exaggerated care, muttering something about good boys and fine dogs and ankle notarization, then fled into the Friday night with a wave that never quite formed. The door latched. Outside, an engine started. Revved once, peeled away with more noise than neighbors appreciated. Silence found the house again and placed 2 hands on its shoulders. Laura leaned her back against the door and let the wood hold her for a moment. You did not say the number 800. I'm proud of you. Didn't need to. The room covered it. She pushed off the door and entered the kitchen, the way sailors return below deck after a storm to count the cups left unbroken. He'll be insufferable at work for a week, she said, pulling plates to the sink. Then he'll be reverent. Water roared, then calmed as she adjusted the tap. You didn't have to show him the grenades. They showed themselves. A look traveled between them that had no need for verbs. He touched my hand, she said finally, as if recording a fact required by law. Not an accident. A claim I saw. I wanted to keep the night intact. I also wanted to break something we chose intact, Thayer said. It will hold. Boone wandered in, sat inside the whole length of his ribs, and the house exhaled with him. Thayer dried his hands and reached for plates. Dessert? He asked. Now dessert. Cheesecake left the refrigerator in a white square that promised ordinary pleasure. They ate standing at the counter, forks lifted, straight from the plates without translation into ceremony. Thayer's second bite tasted better than the first because the air had changed. You didn't eat much earlier, Laura said, pointing with her fork. I don't eat while the table wobbles. You are infuriating. I am ballast. Stop using my words against me. He lifted his fork in apology and then in toast. To your clients, he said. To my resume, she answered. In case the man decides I am not sufficiently grateful for his restraint. Let him decide. We decide other things. She leaned her hip against the counter. You really believe in arrangement, don't you? I believe in levels. If the picture tilts, a thumb fixes it. If the frame keeps sliding, a nail does. That metaphor worries me. The house stands, he said. That's the point. Boone rested his chin on Thayer's foot and accepted a crumb that may or may not have been sanctioned. His eyes said he would testify that it had been. Later, dishes clicked into place. The good knives returned to their drawer with the sigh of a problem understood and set aside. Thayer wiped the table with a cloth so damp it left no streaks. Laura sent an email to herself with the subject line, Sunday cheesecake recipe for mom, which she would not send on Sunday because mothers did not need every recipe, and because sometimes subject lines stood in for sentences the heart wanted to file somewhere safe. On the coffee table, the bottle of expressive red lay on its side like a fish sleeping. Boone nosed it. The cork thumped against glass. Outside, the neighborhood resumed its usual noises, unaware of the small war that had not required soldiers. As they turned off lights, Laura paused at the den. The grenades sat in their glass, harmless as old fruit once the pit had turned to stone. I don't like them, she said. They're retired. I don't like the way they are retired where guests can ask if they're real. They stop conversations that need stopping. She tilted her head. So do you. That's the work, he said. Quiet if possible. And if not quiet, still arranged. Boone gave a soft bark at nothing, which is to say at everything. They went upstairs. Night sat down around the house like a coat across the shoulders. Grant did not quit the next day. He sent Laura an email at 6:05 a.m. with a subject line that apologized for any awkwardness and praised her strong home environment, as if a home could be measured with a ruler. He CC'd no one and signed with a dash he probably thought made him look efficient. The Monday after, he skipped the joke he had been workshopping about team retreats at lakeside hotels. The Friday after that, he closed his door when she entered and kept his eyes on the spreadsheet. Meetings grew shorter, praise sounded less like possession and more like professional air. Men can learn. He learned it because evenings in certain houses alter the gravity of Monday mornings. The bottle of expressive red waited on the counter until Laura gave it to a neighbor who enjoyed wine that described itself. The knives remained sharp, and the dog resumed his rounds. Once a week, Thayer took Boone to a field and threw a ball until the dog decided rest mattered more than pursuit. The ball bore tooth marks but held. On a different Friday, months away from the night, Laura arrived home with shoulders that did not need to sit in a straight line to convince her of their strength. Promotion, she said softly, and the soft sounded nothing like caution. It sounded like tide. They celebrated with takeout because ceremony can be taken too far, and luck should not be tempted. Boone received a second biscuit. He studied Thayer as if to say he would allow this one. The house adjusted to a slightly different weight, as houses do when something good arrives, and asked for a drawer. When the moon decided to be bright, Thayer sometimes looked at the den and thought of targets, of paper that tore in obedient circles, of men who learned the ordinary fact that paper stops there. Laura sometimes paused at the kitchen counter and touched a pale mark where a wine glass had once left a ring. The mark would fade. It had not mattered even while it stayed. The counter still held plates, the plates still held dinner, and the knives still rested edge down, because certain lessons once learned prefer to live quiet. Boone knew none of this in words, but he knew everything in mood. The house had a mood he could nap inside. The humans walked past each other with the geometry of people who meant it. He would check the back door again at 11, just to be certain wolves had not taught themselves locks. After that, sleep. Morning would bring breakfast and people he admired. The arrangement suited him. As for Thayer, he did not speak of 800 yards again. He did not need to. Some distances explain themselves once, and then live in the room in a way that continues to move the furniture. Dinner had ended without spectacle. Precision had done what precision does when allowed to work, replaced noise with shape. The shape looked like a marriage that could withstand a guest. The guest understood the shape and found the door. There are louder victories. There are louder stories. A certain kind of man prefers the loud ones because the quiet never invites applause. Thayer would take quiet wins stacked like folded napkins. Laura would take promotions earned under ordinary bulbs. Boone would take a house where nobody had to raise a voice to be understood. And the grenades, retired, inert, aligned, would not move unless asked to move, which is to say, unless the world forgot itself again. The world for now remembered. Original, heartwarming fiction every week. Subscribe for your next great story.